gentlemen, this is the Militia Roundtable. Our website is militiaradio.com. It is Thursday, October 29th, 2009. Our guests tonight are Cliff High and George Their web.
You're.
I'm sorry about that.
Oh, no problem. Like, you're there.
Yeah, here's there.
You're kidding.
Cliff's website is halfpasthuman.com. George's website is .com, and I'll yield the floor to Bruce here. Take it away, Bruce.
Thanks a lot, Steve, and thank both our guests for taking some of their time to be with us and spread their information. I guess you guys might have already had this worked out. A lot of folks are listening. We got extra reflectors because last time you guys almost crashed us.
That's it. Blame us, yes.
We're ready tonight. Anyways, Cliff, a lot of folks are... My big question is, obviously, things didn't fall apart as predicted. So, has there been a change in the language?
Well, that was just it. We did indeed see a change in the language. And I don't know specifically how people were expecting it to unfold, but it wasn't intended to ever be a crash. It was never a tipping point. And we've had tons of stuff happen since early Saturday morning, which was a couple of days early. It started because it's a large mass, and we didn't anticipate that part. But we have the Obama announcement of the, swine flu horror national emergency thing, right? And that was actually the beginning of the large-scale turn on the language in the media from that point on. And we've seen some pretty significant movements that, for the most part, your regular cube-farmed human is not yet aware of the implications. These have continued all through this week, including up to today, where we're seeing the ramifications of the Saudi Arabia dropping the West Texas crude index contract as their source of negotiations. Most people don't realize the stunning ramifications of this. The dollar is being decoupled from oil in a very short period of time. They're undoing something that has existed, 30 years, 40 years? Or longer, George? You tell me, when did petrodollars start?
Oh, when did Texas oil start? I mean, you go back to the days when, I'm trying to remember the name of the field over near Jacksonville, Texas, came in. Texas has been sort of the benchmark in terms of oil because West Texas Intermediate, the stuff that comes out of the ground up in the Permian Basin, that stuff is really easy to refine. Oil is not consistent, around the world, and the decoupling of the dollar is one of those things that will likely continue rippling. Well, I've been getting a tremendous amount of response on my website. People are all over the board on this. Some people go, oh my gosh, look, a presidential declaration of national emergency. Oh look, we've got the Commerce Secretary in China getting a presidential declaration of authority to sell or negotiate American missile technology to the Chinese. That's something Al Gore was roasted about when he tried it, and for some reason, Gary Locke, the current Commerce Secretary, seems to be able to go to China, get a designation under the Strom Thurmond 1999 Defense Appropriations Act to give or sell missile technology to China, more of it, and nobody seems to be noticing. So you've got a presidential emergency, you've got our technology going to China.
We've got Iranian oil bores.
Yeah, you got the Iranian oil bores dedicated Monday, and all of these things. It never has been. We thought, no kidding, we actually thought early on that we would see a strike on Iran because of the language. I was just watching some television out of Germany, and the second or third story on all of the international channels is how the UN Iran talks are at a critical juncture because the Iranians apparently want to renegotiate a couple of deal points. And you have to remember, for for Cliff software, it doesn't make any difference whether events are real, something where you run to the fallout shelter, or whether it's a series of headlines. But I would offer that we may be wrong. However, let's also wait a couple of weeks until November 5th and see which one of these or ones of these have really taken root and continue to evolve, change, and impact lives globally over the next couple of weeks. This is not a single event in the data. It is a series of events. We're looking
turning
at
a large mass, yes.
Large mass.
Kind of like getting a herd to move. It takes more than one cowboy out there with a whip. You got to get a bunch of them all sort of pushing the herd in the same general direction. We've also had the announcement that the Russians are rearming Cuba. We've had the announcement of the filing of bankruptcy of the largest single commercial real estate financier for the United States, which just coincidentally happens to be owned 15% by GMAC, a troubled financing firm on its own, and you could just go on and on and on. There have been perhaps about 400 stories internationally since late Saturday night, all showing a significant shift into building tension. If we look internationally, we find that over the period of the weekend and into this week, we've got the Israelis surfacing again with all kinds of problems with Lebanon and with the local Muslim population over actions on the Temple Mount area. And we've got issues with the Iraqis on a couple of different fronts, not only the bombing, but they've closed their school system down due to swine flu. We've had a huge one, which was a release of a report that said that basically 51% of the Chinese population would refuse to take the vaccine because they don't think it's safe. And dozens of others. I mean, I've got some of them saved. I can go and root them out. But I think, in essence, we've made the point that the language has changed, which is what we said would occur. Now, all of these, the shift in language in general, will continue this way. So we can expect more bombings, perhaps even more weird meteors exploding over Indonesia, strange earthquakes, this kind of stuff, to continue the tension until we get to about the 5th. And then there will be this kind of like choppy shift, and it should be palpable. We should be able to feel that as well as we go through a different kind of tension from that point forward to the end of the year.
So, well, this is one thing, I don't know if you caught it, I'm sure you guys did, where the Russians said they're going to reserve the right for preemptive strikes. Is there any...
No, that's what I missed.
Yeah, it was just a blurb. I caught it a couple days ago, and I thought, wow. So is there any possibility that Russia might try to do a preemptive invasion?
With us? No, it doesn't make a lot of sense. The nature of conflict between Russia and the U.S. has always been limited to bomb back to the Stone Age, because invasion is just not an option. The Russians are good at some things. The saying used to be in the 60s at the height of the Cold War that Americans were absolutely fantastic at logistics, which is true. We can extend our force anywhere on the planet because we know how to provide the backup, or we used to, which was, the food service and hygiene and all of the other stuff, whereas the Russians were great with science and cutting-edge new weapons. And if it could be done with a pencil or a blackboard, they were the people to go to because they had no other resources, in essence. And so the Russians have, while they're technically brilliant in many ways, are not logistically so. So to expect Russia to extend a landed force of any size outside of their continental area is showing your naivete to a certain extent. Now, while the Chinese could do it because they have the mass, again, they're not logistans. And they don't have the resources in terms of they didn't used to. Now with all of the empty carrier ships, that may not be true, but they didn't used to have the resources that to extend their force across the ocean, whereas the U.S. does. That's really our only real key strategic advantage, and that's why we were so desperate to militarize space, to be able to extend it up that far, because Earth moves at 1,000 miles per hour, and so therefore if you had a satellite, basically you could get it around the Earth and shift it here and there and essentially hit almost any place within, I think, 60 arc minutes in probably about an hour or two of actual transitional time, so wars would be brief that way. I don't know what the issue is now relative to that, but no, I wouldn't worry about Russia that way. But the idea of a preemptive of this announcement may be something relative to Iran. Bear in mind that Russia and China have strategic alliances with Iran that seemingly preclude their allowing us, in the form of the Zionistically led West, to do anything. And it represents a real point of strategic risk. In other words, we don't know how they will respond.